Hello my dear students, hope you are doing well. Today we are going to explain the grammar of Unit 5 Part 1. Today's lesson is talking about the active voice and the passive voice. We are going to know what is the active voice and what is the passive voice. But let's start with the active voice. Active voice sentences are sentences in which the subject is doing the action. In the active voice sentences, we know the subject and we know that the subject is the one who is doing the action. That's why the active voice sentences are marked by SVO. S for the subject and V for the verb and O for the object. So the subject is the doer of the action and the verb is the action itself and the object receives the action. So the active voice starts with the subject. After the subject comes the verb and after the verb comes the object. So again, in the active voice sentences, we know the object, we know the doer of the action. Now let's see the example. The cow eats hay. So in this sentence, where is the subject? The cow. Who eats hay? The cow. So we know the subject here. So the cow is the subject. And what about eats? Eats is the action. So eats here is the verb. And what about hay? Hay here is the object because it receives the action. So this sentence is an active voice sentence. Why? Because we know the subject, which is the cow, and we have the verb, the action, and we have the object, SVO. We know the subject. After the subject comes the verb, comes the action, and after that comes the object which receives the action. Now let's see another example. Anna painted the house. So let's start with Anna. Anna here is the doer of the action. So Anna here is the subject. And because the subject is the doer of the action. Okay, let's move to painted. Painted here is the action itself. So it is the verb. And the house here receives the action of painting. So the house here is an object. So we have SVO. We know the subject. We know the doer of the action here, SVO. So this is an active voice sentence. Now let's move to the passive voice sentences. Passive voice sentences are sentences in which the action is being done to the subject. A form of the verb to be must be used in these sentences. This means that in the passive voice sentences, we don't know the doer of the action. We have no subject, okay? The subject is not clear unless he says by, as we will see now. Okay, the passive voice sentences are marked by OVVS. O for the object and V for verb to be, because verb to be must be used in these sentences. We should use verb to be in the passive voice sentences. And the other V for the main verb, the action itself, and the S for the subject. So the passive voice is marked by, again, OVVS. O for the object and V, verb to be. We start with verb to be, then comes the main verb, and the last thing is the subject. Okay, but the active voice is SVO, is marked by SVO, but passive OVVS. Please keep this in your mind. Now let's see the example. The hay is eaten by the cow. So we have the hay here. So the hay here is an object. Okay, because the hay is not doer here, it's not doer of the action, so it's an object here. And we have verb to be, which is. So this is verb to be. And after that we have eaten, the main verb. So till now we have O, V, V, and the cow here is S. It's the doer of the action. The cow here ate the hay, but I didn't start with the cow. I started with the hay. I started with the object, and the subject comes at the end of the sentence. So we have OVVS. So this is a passive voice sentence because we started with the object, and after the object we put verb to be, which is here because it's present, and after that we put the main verb, we put the action, another V, and at the end of the sentence comes the subject, the doer of the action. But this is an important thing that you must notice here, which is by. In the passive voice sentences, guys, we should use by. If you are gonna mention the subject, you have to say by the cow, as in that example, the hay is eaten by the cow. So we should put by before the subject in the passive voice sentences, but it's an optional thing. We can say the hay is eaten, and that's it. Here we didn't mention the subject when we say the hay is eaten and we stopped. But when you mention the subject, you have to put by, as in the example, the hay is eaten by the cow. Another example. The house was painted by Anna. So the house here, is the house here a subject? Of course not, because it's not the doer of the action. So it's an object. And was is verb to be, the past tense of verb to be. And after that comes the main verb, which is the painting. And at the end of the sentence we put the subject, we put the doer of the action. So we have OVVS. And here we mentioned the subject, right, Anna? So before the subject we have to put by. So when we have OVVS, object, verb to be, and main verb and subject at the end of the sentence, this is a passive voice sentence. And if you mention the subject, and this is optional in the passive voice sentences, you should put by before the subject. Okay, and now how to form passive voice sentences. As we said, we start with the object. Again, we have the object, and after that we have verb to be, and after that we have the main verb, then comes by before the subject. So OVVS. And if you are gonna mention the subject, you have to put by before the subject. But beware that concerning verb to be, we have the present form and the past form. The present form of verb to be is am, is, are. If the object is singular, you are gonna say is. If it's plural, you are gonna say are. And for the past, if the object is singular, you are gonna say was, and if it's plural, you are gonna say were. So concerning verb to be, we have the present form and the past form. Don't forget this. And concerning the verb, we should put the past participle of the verb. The past participle of the verb, such as eat, ate, eaten, play, played, played. We put the past participle of the verb. So again, concerning the active voice, the passive voice sentences, we have OVVS. O for the object and V for verb to be. Verb to be should be mentioned in the passive voice sentences, and it can be present, am, is, are, or past, was, or were. Then comes the main verb, the main action in your sentence, and the main action should be past participle. Then you have to mention by, and at the end of the sentence you put your subject. Now let's see some examples here. Chester kicked the ball. Again, Chester kicked the ball. Let's analyze this sentence. We have Chester. Who kicked the ball? Chester. So Chester here is the doer of the action. So Chester here is the subject. And after that we have kicked. Kicked here is the verb. the action, and the ball here is the object because it receives the action, which is the kicking, which is kicking the which is kicking. So we have SVO, subject, verb, object. We started with the subject and we know the doer of the action well, so this is an active voice sentence. After that, the ball was kicked by Chester. The ball here is the object. Of course, it's not the doer of the action. After that, we have the verb to be, the past form of verb to be, which is was. And after that, we have the main verb, the past participle, kick, kicked, kicked, because it's regular verb. And at the end of the sentence, we have the subject, which is Chester, and we put by before the subject. So OVVS, and we have by, so this is a passive voice sentence. Now let's see some examples. The first one, the hunter kills the lion. Okay, the hunter here is the subject, right? Is the doer of the action. We know the subject who kills the lion, the hunter. And after that we have kills. Kills here is the verb. And after that we have the line. The line here is the object. So we have SVO. So this is an active voice sentence. Okay, after that, the lion is killed by the hunter. The lion is killed by the hunter. Here we have the line. The line here is the object because it receives the action, and after that we have verb to be, the present form of verb to be, which is because the line is singular. And after that we have killed. Killed here is past participle of the verb kill, and the hunter here is the subject because it is the doer of the action. And of course we have boy, so we have OVVS, and we have boy before the subject, so this is a passive voice sentence. Another example, the thief stole the cars. So the thief here is the subject because he stole the cars. Who stole the cars? The thief. So we know the doer of the action. After that we have the verb, which is the stole, and after that we have the object. So SVO, so this is an active voice sentence. Okay. Another example, the cars were stolen by the thief. We have the cars here, the cars, it's the object, and where, the verb to be, and we put where here because the cars is plural, and stolen, the past participle of the verb steal, steal, stole, stolen, and at the end of the sentence comes the subject, and before the subject we put by, so we have OVVS and by before the subject, so this is a passive voice sentence. Now let's move to the exercises of the book. Write A on the line if the sentence is active voice and P if the sentence is passive voice. Okay, letter A. Was his leg shattered? Okay, we have verb to be, which is was, his leg, and shattered. Okay, do you know the subject here? Is the subject mentioned here? No, so this is a passive voice sentence. Letter B. I collected firewood for the stove. Okay, we have I, which is the subject. We know the doer. Collected is verb, and who collected the firewood? So the firewood is the object. So we have SVO. So this sentence is active. Excellent. Letter C. The blanks weren't folded on or placed on the chair. So the blanks here, are the blanks here the doer? No, of course they are not folding themselves. So the blanks here is the object, and weren't is verb to be, and folded is the other verb, is the action itself. So it's a passive voice sentence. he didn't mention the subject here because it's optional to mention the subject. Letter D, the floor was mopped and drying. So the floor here, okay, was the floor mopping itself? Of course not. So it's an object. And was verb to be, and mopped is the main verb, the past participle of the verb mop. So this is a passive voice sentence. After that, letter E, Granny was making breakfast. Granny, who was making breakfast? Granny. So we know the subject. We started with the subject, and was making the verb, the action. It's a present, the past continuous, and breakfast is the object, and we started with the subject. So we have SVO. So this is an active voice sentence. Okay. Letter F. Would David read a book to us as we worked? So of course we know the subject here, which is David, and read is the action, and book is the object. So this is an active voice sentence. After that, letter G. The checkerboard is neatly placed within David's reach. So the checkerboard, it's the object. We started with the object, and is verb to be, and placed the past participle. So this is a passive voice sentence. Letter H. The chickens were picking at corn in the yard. So who were picking? The chickens. So the chickens here is the subject, and were picking is the verb, because it's past continuous. So this is an active voice sentence because we started with the subject. Their eggs were collected daily. So are the eggs collected themselves? Of course not. So this is the object, and were verb to be, and collected is the past participle of the verb collect. So this is the passive voice sentence. Letter J. The farm is run with the help of William, sorry. So the farm, so is the farm run itself? Of course not. So this is an object, and after that we have verb to be, and after that we have the past participle of the verb run, rain, run. So we started with the object, so this is a passive voice sentence. Letter K. I used them to make cakes sometimes. So who used them? I. So I know the subject. I started with the subject, and used is the verb, and them is the object here. So this is an active voice sentence. Life was returning to normal. So who was or what was returning to normal? So life here is the subject, and was returning past continuous. So it's an active voice sentence because we start with the subject. Letter M. The cow was milked every other day. So was the cow milk itself? Of course not. So the cow here is the object. So we started with the object, and after that verb to be, and after verb to be the past participle of the verb milk. So this is a passive voice sentence. Okay, so this is the active and passive voice. Please study the lesson well and solve the exercises in the booklet and the book. Thank you for listening.